And now we are going to enter the most important steps for this traffic light class. And this is actually the steps to handle the state of the traffic light, okay? So the state basically it's when the traffic light is with the red LED, so it means stop, or the yellow LED, or the green LED, or also the green LED blinking, okay? All that also working with the push button, okay? So we can add more interactiveness, and when we press on the push button, we can trigger a change of state if the state is currently the red LED state. So how are we going to handle that in the traffic light class? Well, we are going to do a state machine, okay? This is pretty useful for now because as you could see, I talked about changing between different states of the traffic light. So a state machine is very useful. For this, we are going to use a switch for the state machine. And this state machine, we are going to put it inside a method called update. So we create an update method just like we did on the LED blinker, okay? So whenever you need to kind of do some instructions very fast, okay, check very fast with a class, you can create an update or a, for example, loop method, and that you are going to call from the loop function of your main program, okay? So in this update, I'm going to handle the state machine. And also in the state machine, we are going to add time functionalities so we can at least spend some time or at least make sure that enough time has passed before we switch to the next state. And I'm going to explain everything. We are going to do everything step by step. So before we implement this, I'm going to add a few private attributes here. I'm going to add int state. So this will contain the current state, okay, of the traffic light. So at any time we can know what is the state and also what is the next step, etc. And we can directly modify this attribute here. And for the different states, okay, of the state machine, I am going to create an enum that I'm going to name traffic light state. Okay, so curly brackets, semicolon. And in this, I can just create state, for example, red like this. I don't need to provide any value. Okay, I could do this, for example, is equal to 1, etc., etc. But I don't need to provide any value because I will just be able, with the enum, I will just be able to simply call state red and then state yellow, state green, and we have another one, state blink green. So we don't need values, okay? We don't need 1, 2, 3, 4 or 0, 1, 2, 3, because I can just do state is equal to state red or state is equal to state yellow, etc. And an enum will be very practical here to use inside a switch. Because for this, you could also decide to create, for example, here a const int with state red, state yellow, etc. But that a const int is not going to compile if you use this inside a switch. What you could also do is add some defines here outside of the class. But then, well, the problem is that it is outside of the class. So it's better if you put the enum inside the class. So it's inside the context of the class and it makes more sense. And so you don't need to name this traffic light state red. You just name it state red because you know it is already inside traffic light, okay? So now I have my update method to implement and I have state and a few enums. So I can toggle between the different states in the switch of the update method, which I'm going to implement here. Void, so traffic light update. Okay, and remember this is going to be called very fast. This is kind of an functionality that you are going to write in a void loop, but instead of writing here, you export this implementation to the update of the traffic light. And so here, let's implement the switch. So let's do the switch. Switch state, okay. And let's write the structure for the switch. So case, we have state red, okay, colon. I'm going to add curly brackets because I prefer using switch with curly brackets. and then so to do break case state yellow, and then let's add a to do so we don't forget to add the code here, and break. Don't forget the break, very important. State green, another to do, and break, and the last state, which is state blink green with another to do and break. And let's not forget the default. Okay, very important to add a default for a switch. To do. And what I'm going to do is that, so when you have a state machine, well, you have to initialize the state first, okay, before you enter the state machine. The state should be something. So what I'm going to do in the init here, when we initialize the traffic light, so I use red, okay, to make the red LED powered on, but I also going to do state is equal to state red. So I initialize the state, okay, so the first state of the state machine will be state red. And now here, what I'm going to do is, before I actually implement the transition between each of the state machine, I'm going to simply do the action, okay, the action. So what do we need to do if the state is red? Well, we are going to power on the red LED, okay. If the state is yellow, I call yellow. If the state is green, I call green. And if the state is blink green, what do I do? Well, let's go to the LED blinker and see what options do we have. So constructor, init, update, and then some getter and setter. So actually the thing we are going to do is we are going to call update from the LED blinker. That's as simple as this. So in the update method of traffic light, if the state is blink green, we do green LED blinker dot update. And this, because it's going to be called very, very fast, then this is going to make the green LED blink at a rate that we have chosen here, so every 100 milliseconds, okay? So this is a functionality that can be quite complex, okay, is to make an LED blink at a certain rate and without blocking the program, okay, so without using delay. And here with just one line of code, we can do this. Because again, we have abstracted everything, we have hidden the implementation in different classes that are on top of each other. And now you can see that with this traffic light class, all the building blocks that we have created before are super useful to create more complex functionalities with just one or two lines of code. Okay, and before I continue, let's actually verify the code to see if it's working. Okay, so now it's working, but if you call the update method here from the main file, it's not going to do anything because, of course, there is no transition between the state. It's always going to stay in the state right. So now we need to implement those transitions.